Hello there my music lovers, I'm Joshua Audiophile-Heaven and today's review and product does not need an introduction. This is the Mr. Speakers or Dan Clark Aeon Flow and we're going to find out whether it is a very good headphone or something that is overrated. So let's dig right in! Hello and welcome back my music lovers. I don't know if you already know about the Aeon Flow, but they are a very well-known headphone. They are like an Audeze LCD2 Classic. It is a headphone that has been omnipresent. Everyone knows about it, everyone probably heard it. It is a very popular headphone, the Aeon Flow. And this is for good reason, I will be honest with you. I couldn't really find the price of them because I could find many websites selling them for many prices, ranging from $1,000 all the way to $650 all the way to $500. Right now, at the moment I'm shooting this video, they are $500 on the official Dan Clark website. Dan Clark and Mr. Speakers are pretty much the same company. It was just a name change from Mr. Speakers to Dan Clark, and you should know the fact that they are pretty much the same headphone still, although they are supposed to be even better than the original versions. The Aeon Flow has a beautiful package, and inside the black cardboard box you will find the carrying box, which is beautiful. This is a very nice case. I am not going to use this case like outside, but I'm going to put it in my backpack and rely on it to protect the headphones. It is a very nice case. Smelling it, I could tell the fact that it is not necessarily leather, but it is very hard, and I don't know if you can notice, but they are going to offer a ton of protection to your headphones. They are going to be just safe. You can find pairs of pads which are going to be placed inside the headphones, or rather inside the ear pads, and this is a pretty interesting mechanism which I'm going to be explaining in just a minute. There are many pairs of those with multiple versions. There is an originality certificate, there is also a little cloth for cleaning them, and there is a guide for using the Aeon Flow. It should be noted the fact that the earpads are user replaceable, but replacing the earpads actually destroys the old ones. So do not remove the earpads unless you have the new ones and you are ready to remove them, because you are going to be left without an usable headphone that way. So let's talk about those crazy white things, and there are a black version too. Those are dampeners, because the resolution, the speed, the attack and the detail of the driver is too good for this world. So they included dampeners, so you can dampen the sound a bit, you can make it a bit more musical, thicker, smoother, you can just dance with it. I'll be honest with you, I have been listening to them without any dampeners at all and I'm enjoying the sound. It is just crazy detailed, it is a bit sibilant and a bit bright. But actually I kinda like it that way. It is very clear, it is so clear that it is like you are just transcending yourself in the music. You hear so many textures, so much detail. It is a bit crazy without any dampeners at all, so I will be giving you this review with the medium dampeners installed. So mainly my impressions are with the medium dampeners installed, so that you know what the default setting is. You can dampen the sound more and you can take some of dampening out if you want to experience the Mr. Speakers or Dan Clark Aeon Flow in a different configuration and flavor. There are many things about this headphone that actually surprised me. I was not expecting a ton of the features it has and a ton of the things it can actually do, and it does oddly. The start and the most interesting part is that the cable is not actually very generic. It is a pretty unique cable and I have no idea why they went with it. It is a self-latching cable like the one I have seen and we have seen together on the Sonoma Model 1 in my older videos. The headphones are just beautiful. Just look at how lush, beautiful, cute they are even. They actually replicate very well a human ear, and if I was to call them something, this shape, it is an ear-shaped headphone. It looks like a bit like a fat banana, and that is actually pretty cool. It is actually not exactly a looker. It is something you grow to love, not necessarily which impresses you at the first view. But the fun part is that they are incredibly comfortable. This shape actually has enough space for my ears, which are medium-sized, and they would have enough space for larger ears also. The pads are of a very good quality. This is just an excellent ear pad. It is very thick and you have a good amount of depth to the pad so that your ears are never touching anything you don't want to touch. The adjusting mechanism is very hard to move, and where I noted on the Aeon Air 2, which is a very direct competitor because of the price point to the Aeon Flow, and I will be comparing it during this video. On the Aeon I've noted that the mechanism was too easy to adjust and I was not able to keep the tension good. On the Aeon Air 2 I noted that you need to insert something or adjust the mechanism using a screwdriver. Well, on the Mr. Speaker's Aeon Flow I am not having that trouble, although it is so hard to adjust that I would suggest using a screwdriver and just being very careful with it. Putting them on my head, I could detect between 5 and 10 decibels of passive noise isolation. Despite the fact that they are open back, they offer you some passive noise isolation, and if you needed a fully open back headphone, there are other options out there. I am telling you this because sometimes I want a full open back headphone. Let's say I am working on my computer and I want to speak with people in the room, or I want to do something where I am having some music in the background, but I also want to be aware of my surroundings. Well, 5 to 10 decibels of passive noise isolation is quite a lot, and I will be saying this, you are not going to get a full open back experience from those. I would call this semi-open back. They aren't exactly fully open back, but they aren't closed back either. The cable they come with is actually excellent, and where I have complained a lot about the Denon cable, which is terrible, the Denon cable is it is a terrible cable. Well, the Mr. Speaker's Aeon Flow cable is just awesome. I love the cable. It is this type of braided cable, which is very similar with the cables that come with the Kennerton Thrower and the LSA HP1, and the cable is not too long this time around. It is just the perfect length for a desktop headphone, about 1.5 to 2 meters. The cable comes with an attachable add-on which converts it between 3.5 millimeters to 6.3 millimeters. All of the cable is single-ended, and I am not sure if they are making a balanced version of it, but I would suppose someone is making a balanced version. I would suggest looking for a balanced version if you have something that has a balanced output, because they are hard to drive. I have a ton of stuff in the house, a ton of amplifiers, a ton of DACs. If you read Audiophile-Heaven, you'll know that I have tested above 300 products in total, and 100 of those are DAC/headphone amplifiers. So I would call myself experienced at this point, and if I am making a mistake or saying something wrong, it is either because I am very tired or because I am just a bit confused, but I have tested a ton of things. Well, the Aeon Flow is so hard to drive that I would call it at the same level as HiFiMan HA6SA. It is pretty similar in how hard it is to drive. I don't know why. For a $500 headphone, I would like to say that it doesn't really make a lot of sense to make it this hard to drive, because someone investing in it may not have the power to drive it. This is the first and the most prominent example I have on hand. This is the Aebixo DX220 Max. This is a 1 kilogram of a DAP, and it cannot drive the Aeon Flow. It is just not enough. They are going to be pretty quiet out of it, although they do sound good, they are too quiet for my listening pleasure. And that is maybe because they come with a single-ended cable only, and I would really suggest considering purchasing the balanced cable. The company makes the balanced cable in XLR, so please ask for it, and if you can, outsource yourself a converter between XLR and 4.4 millimeters, because with the headphones in their original state, you are not going to be able to drive them from many sources. The DX220 Max has a ton of power, but on single-ended, on the 3.5mm output, it is not enough. The analog audio AA DAC is not quite enough either, and that one is a monster that could drive pretty much everything. The Aeon Flow is way harder to drive than the Aeon Air 2, it is harder to drive than LCD2C, it is harder to drive than HiFiMan Aria. It is so crazy hard to drive that I would say it is just below the HiFiMan HA6SA, which is the hardest headphone to drive I have seen in my entire life. And the life of a reviewer is actually pretty busy. I have to review a ton of stuff. So as you can imagine, they are so hard to drive that I'm having a hard time recommending them to new buys, to noobs, or to newcomers. If you are a beginner in this hobby, this is not made for you. It is not made for you because it will be so quiet and you are going to have a shock. I actually had a similar shock when I was just at the beginning of my hobby, the beginning of my journey. I was a teen dreamy, full of passion, full of desire, and I went ahead and purchased an Akigi Q701, which is extremely hard to drive from portables. And at that moment I was having a Kaon G3, which is a very old DAB. I don't know if many of you even know what that is, but it was a very cute little DAB with a touchscreen in about 2011. It was a very old thing, but at any rate, I had that DAB and I purchased the headphones. I was so eager to hear them. I was so happy when they arrived. I unboxed them and my entire happiness died. My personal joy and passion just gone the moment I plugged them in, because they were so quiet. They couldn't even do 70 decibels of music. I was just blocked. I couldn't believe my ears. I spent about 1 week returning them because I couldn't really use them. So the same may be true with you if you order the Aeon Flow and if you don't have a good source. I would recommend the cheapest, most entry-level source I could recommend for them, honestly, is either the JD Labs Atom or the FIO K5 Pro. Both of them should do a good job, but once again, you are not supposed to get those if you listen extremely loud. I am a very loud listener. I like to blow myself with music, so when I listen to music, I like to have a bit of volume, and they are very hard to push. You need something like the Audio GD Master 19 to drive them, which is a very strong amplifier. You need a ton of power for them, and please take me seriously because I'm very serious about this. They are really hard to drive. With my little critique being finished, I'm going to keep praising them because everything else is just awesome. I have nothing else to complain about, so if you were sticking in the video to hear my complaints, yeah, that was pretty much it. The self-latching mini XLR mechanisms are actually quite great. You can decide which is the right and which is the left, because the right has a little red bit on it, and you can find the position by slowly turning in that feeling for the plug. When you push on them, they push right in, but they cannot be removed unless you pull on the little part here. This self-latching mechanism is not unique, but I kinda like it. You will need to source this type of connector. I'm not sure if they are compatible with other connectors. On my testing, I couldn't tell if they are compatible, and I didn't want to force things. The best part about the sound is how detailed, clear, crisp, beautiful this is. And I will not hesitate to tell you that this is probably the best quality, detail, and clarity you can get for $500 US. It is just outstanding. I have the iBasso CR2 here and the Aeon Flow from Mr. Speakers and Dan Clark. So let's begin by saying that both are very comfortable, but iBasso CR2 is a bit more comfortable than the Aeon Flow because they are larger. They are also a bit heavier. The Aeon Flow is very light, and it is so light that I'm considering it probably the most comfortable tiny headphone I have seen. This is made to be compact. This can be compacted in that carrying case, while the iBasso CR2 is not quite as compact. Another thing I should note you about is the head pads, the ear pads, which are better on the Mr. Speakers Aeon Flow than on the iBasso, although on the iBasso they are somewhat softer, which leads to the feeling of better comfort. The overall isolation from the noise from outside is actually better on the iBasso CR2. They are even less open than the Aeon Flow. The iBasso CR2 isolates you a bit more from the outside noise. It leaks a bit less too. The Aeon Flow leaks quite a lot compared to the CR2. The CR2 is not quite as leaky. The sound is considerably more detailed, more clear, and has more resolution on the Aeon Flow, but it is warmer, more musical, and considerably more natural on the iBasso CR2. The CR2 is much easier to get extremely loud, to explode, to implode, to give you punch, to give you dynamics, while the Aeon Flow needs a ton of power to give you punch and dynamics, and that is a big thing because you will be able to enjoy the iBasso CR2 much easier. You are going to just need a pretty entry-level source. A smartphone will not do, but most entry-level sources will do just fine. While with the Mr. Speakers Aeon Flow or with the Dan Clark Aeon Flow, you need a pretty good source too. I think that this is a good thing because they kind of filter out all of the poor sources you can pair them with, and that is kind of cool. You are going to always be using a good source with them, and that is going to always give you a good result, and this may be why you will feel that they sound very clear, very crisp, and very detailed. On the other hand, if you need just something simple, musical, something that is already very detailed and very clear, the iBasso CR2 will be that. Another headphone to compare the Aeon Flow with is the Audeze LCD2 Classics, and compared to the Audeze LCD2 Classics, the Aeon Flow is considerably more detailed, has a much better treble. I'm just in love with the treble of the Aeon Flow. I love it so much. It is making it is just lovely. It has a ton of air, sparkle, resolution, extension, everything I have ever wanted from a headphone. They are much harder to drive than the LCD2 Classic, and that is a big thing because they are so hard to drive. I'm having a very hard time recommending them despite all of their qualities. They are actually so good in the terms of sound that they would probably make the best $500 headphone if they weren't so hard to drive. The soundstage is not the largest out there, and I have not been able to pair them with anything that gave them a much larger soundstage, so they are slightly smaller in soundstage and more close to you than the Aebeso CR2, and they are slightly larger than the Audeze LCD2 Classic, which was a pretty narrow soundstage kinda headphone too. All in all, the Aeon Flow is extremely detailed, it is beautiful, it is musical, it is comfortable, it is well built, it has a beautiful overall quality, and I personally like it. It manages to be light, it manages to give you excellent resolution, and with the medium pads installed, you are actually getting a very good mix of detail, clarity, musicality, thickness, and bass. When you remove all of the pads and you'll just listen to them on their raw driver performance, you are getting such an excellent amount of detail. They are just becoming juicy, but at the same time they are very resolute, which may be fatiguing. So the company doesn't really recommend you to use them that way, but I don't know. Us reviewers are a bit mischievous and I wanted to see what the driver sounds like. The driver has a beautiful sound. Even without any type of dampening, they are just going to serve you well. And I'm going to say this. I do recommend the Mr. Speakers and Dan Clark Aeon Flow. I really recommend them. They are a beautiful headphone. I love them. I will be reviewing them in writing. I am blown away by their quality, overall resolution, and just everything about the sound. I'm just a bit concerned that at $500, which is the main base price I could find, at that price I am a bit concerned that many beginners will purchase them. And if you are a beginner and if you are expecting to be driving them out of a smartphone, just keep this in mind. My Xiaomi Redmi Note 9S was able to drive most Eons and about half of headphones out there. With it, until up to the maximum volume, they were almost faint sounding. When connecting them to the smartphone, I almost thought they died. That is how hard they are to drive. Just keep that in mind. It is my personal, honest experience. I thank you for watching and I hope your experience was better, was best, was awesome with me at Audiophile-Heaven. I hope you'll consider subscribing to my Audiophile-Heaven channel. I hope you leave a like on this video. I hope you have a lovely weekend and we'll see each other really soon. Bye bye.